So here in this video is a quick time lapse of a random comic page I did. I decided to show this as a testing out for hot press fluid paper. I am totally on the fence about whether I'm okay with or completely hate this artwork, to be honest. I did like the way the lines turned out, but yeah, I guess you can be the judge. I chose to try out the hot press 100% cotton paper because when it comes to line work, it's usually nicer to work with smoother paper, but I also like to color in the images with watercolor. So there's my dilemma. I know this may not be the best method, but I thought I'd try it out since I've had this paper for a short while and haven't touched it yet, being too precious with it. To start, I show the rough sketches for each panel. Typically, I like to have sketches done before I dive into a final piece. I started recording after I did my underlines since I'm still not 100% used to recording myself drawing, and when I start sketching, I'm not sure if I'll complete a piece yet, so I didn't just want to have an hour or so of sketching footage that went to nowhere. I am using a Royal & Langdon size 1 brush liner and acrylic ink. I would recommend this brush actually. It's cheap and the flow is nice. It's so far lasted several months, so it's hopefully gonna last a lot longer. The first panel is probably my favorite for this entire piece. I feel like I enjoyed the inking of it the most, and even I guess the coloring of it was the best. That might just be because it was the biggest one and it was the easiest one to work with. And I also decided not to use a ruler for straight lines in this artwork. I don't hate this decision, but line weight does get harder to control with a brush and trying to draw straight lines. For the actual boxes, I used a felt tip pen and ruler, although at one point I tilted the pad and made my life more difficult for no reason. And trying to ink this, maybe to try for the camera to better see it. I don't know what I was doing. I decided to tape off the space between the panels last minute just so I didn't have to worry about being messy, but you'll see I'll regret this decision in a bit. The thing about this paper is it looks like it's pilling up so easily with any amount of layers of watercolor I applied to it. Look, it was very strange. That feature sort of disappears once the paper is dry, but it's very strange and hard to tell if you are about to wreck the paper. The main reason I feel like I also disliked this artwork in the end was picking the wisteria color to add in to the mix. It's a nice color, but I keep forgetting that it is a color that's mixed with white, so trying to add other colors and layer with it, it starts getting very muddy, and it's just not a color that behaves well with everything else. I have in some cases used it in the past where it's okay, but it's very light washes and not a lot of mixing in with each other. So this is where some things started turning into a disaster and maybe a little bit washed out in some spots. And also like just the skin tone of his face in the first panel. Yeah, it's like this weird mustardy yellow. That was like I think the biggest thing that I hated. I regretted taping the areas because in a frustrated panic, I ended up yanking the tape off, which resulted in rips. You can clearly see a big one happen here. So this paper is a lot more delicate than most cold press papers I have ever dealt with. Yes, I know you're supposed to be a little bit more delicate when you're taking the tape off, but in this case, it was worse than my mixed media paper, and that's just a cheap sketchbook paper where it's always gonna rip. But for cold press, for the most part, it hasn't ever been that sensitive, even if I'm a little bit panicky. In the end, I find I don't entirely hate the result, but for sure there is room for improvement. It's far from my best piece, which makes sense. This was a bit of an experiment with me really wanting to try out this paper. It works, it's just a little weird for me, so I need to practice more with it, and also I really need to axe the wisteria for my palette. I love the color, but it's about the 5th time I've muddied up my other colors with it, so I'll see if I can find a similar color that has no white in it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. If you got this far, thanks.